when we tried to legalize moose bow hunting here in Finland was that there's not too much Nordic or European research about bow hunting, or to be specific, bow hunting larger mammals. Although the Danish study is really good about the roe deer, our scientists, our authorities wanted to have something more considering the moose bow hunting, and that's the reason why we started to research. We started this research here in Finland. The whole purpose of this research initially was to prove that bow hunting is not less ethical compared to any other weapons. And that's the cornerstone of everything what we have done. Here's a short summary what we're going to go through, but let's skip to the next ones. I want to show you some of the numbers considering our study, some of the findings and some of the observations that we were able to gather while doing the whole research. During this research, our plan was to gather data from harvest situations of 100 whitetails harvested with a bow and 100 whitetails harvested with a rifle. And we wanted to measure all the data we can get from the harvest situations, including the shot distances, the shot placements, the flight distances of the animals when they are hit, and pretty much everything, the bow poundages, broadhead types, arrow weights, killing edges, also something about the rifles used. And we wanted to be able to gather a package of data that actually shows the differences of how the animals react to hits from different weapons. And right now the situation is that we have gathered the data for 3 years, ending last year, and we're waiting for the final report to come out this summer. Anyhow, we had more than 100 hunters participating in the data collection. We built a digital form that everybody can fill when they've harvested a deer. We had some individual hunters. Most of the bow hunters were individual hunters from around Finland, and most of the rifle data was collected from one big hunting club that shot 300, 400 animals per year. And we managed to get harvest data from 106 rifle kills and 130 bow kills, which is more than we actually expected. In addition to the harvest data, we have been collecting harvest videos so we can see how the animals react and actually show to the welfare scientists, animal welfare scientists, how the animals behave before and after getting shot. And this is to bring some kind of a comparison to, for example, animals in the slaughterhouses and so on. And it seems like I have some numbers on this slide that shouldn't be here. The average poundage of the bow. Anyhow, let's go further. Here's some statistics of the bows or bow and arrow combinations used. As you can see, the majority and all of the hunters in this case were men. We were trying to gather also female hunters to participate. We had some, but they didn't succeed harvesting during the seasons. Anyhow, as you can see, there are not too many over 70 poundage bows used in this research or by the average bow hunter here. Most of them fall between 60 and 70 pounds, and I would say that if we had more accurate poundage measurement here, I would guess that the bows used were closer to 60 pounds than 70 pounds. In addition, you can see the kinetic energy here. was over 90 joules in most of the cases, which I think tells more about the compounds or the bows used in this case. All of the bows in this research were compound bows, even if we had some traditional shooters participating as well. Arrow weights, most of the arrows fell between 25 and 30 grams. I don't have the percentages here, but it's almost, actually it's pretty much close to 50% of the arrows were in between 25 and 30 grams. And I would say that doesn't really differ from any bow poundage or anything. We're gonna have a better breakdown of the data later, but most of the Finnish hunters seem to use the 25 grams or more for the arrow weight. One of the reasons why people ended up into these weights is also that when we tried to legalize the moose, we actually had in the legislation memo a recommendation of the minimum weight for the arrows if the moose gets legalized. And a lot of people have actually grabbed that idea and started using heavier arrows because of that, even though the legislation with the moose didn't go through. From my point of view, I think it's a good thing. There's less compromise on the penetration in this case. More relevant numbers. Most of the research data gatherer hunters used fixed broadheads, and the majority of the broadheads had really, how do you say, traditional cutting diameter. Not a lot of people using over 2-inch diameter broadheads in this case. And in Finland, it seems to me that the most common way of thinking is that the broadhead diameter doesn't really matter that much, as does the rigidity of the broadhead and the sharpness. And about the rifle cartridges, most of them had a kinetic energy of 2,000 to 2,700 joules. Majority of the hunters here use, I would say, the 308 Win caliber. And half of the bullets were made of copper, half of lead. During that time, and as the legislation has been changing, I would guess that that percentage has changed after. And here, some preliminary findings what we have found from the data. Now, in this data, actually, I'll go before I go translating more or talking about this more. What we did, we had some cases, or actually with the rifle shooters, we had tens of cases of the rifle shooters shooting the deer to head or to neck intentionally. So they were looking for a spine shot or nervous system shot, which means that all of those shots, if they hit, they lead into the animal dropping down on their tracks. With the bow hunters, we had 3 spine shots, if I remember correctly. And when we started to compare the flight distances of the rifle shots and bow harvests, we noticed that if we take away all the spine shots and all the head shots, the flight distances are what you can see here. They're pretty uniform. Actually, they're really close to each other when you look at the average flight distance. The reason why we excluded all the spine shots and head shots was because we wanted to compare how the animals run after shot into the vital area. We thought that it's going to be irrelevant it's irrelevant to compare spine shots into the lung shots, because we all know that if an animal is hit to the lungs, to the spine or head, it's not going to run anywhere. So it doesn't really tell anything about the weapon type or its effectiveness. It's just physics. That's one of the reasons why we have altered, or we have shown only the flight distances with the lung shots here. The final report is probably going to include some of the spine shots and head shots, but it's a matter of the scientist here, Mikaela Savola, the veterinarian behind all of this, how she's going to handle all the head shots and spine shots. But when we want to compare apples to apples, this is what we have with the lung shots. And as you can see, the average shot distance with the rifle is many times longer than with the bow. This is expected. Interesting thing here, that the bad hits, which means that the animal, that it was written that the animal was hit somewhere else than intended, was only 6% with the both weapons. But all of the rifle miss hits were recovered, and some of the bow shots some of the bow miss shots were, which is a pity. But on this this big harvest numbers, 2% is not a lot. This is what we think. What we actually learn from the data, or learn from the numbers, that actually, let's go further. What we actually learned when we went through the data was that the rifle is used as a hunting weapon totally differently than the bow. They're not totally differently, but differently anyhow. With the bow, the hunter is usually only able to shoot one shot, and if the shot is bad, the animal's not going to stay there waiting for another one. But with the rifle, many of the cases had 2 shots shot to the animal within the first case, where the hunters were shooting the animal, so they were able to kind of shoot a follow-up shot after a bad shot. And this is the case of why there were none unrecovered bad shots with the rifles. All of the cases where the shots were bad, the animals were shot 2 or 3 times in total. Wherein with the bow data, I don't recall any 2 shot incidents with the animals. And which is interesting, which is a good data, good information from our point of view, to more describe the use of the hunting bow and kind of its strengths and weaknesses to the authorities. Some of the questions we've had during this research from the authorities was that don't people do we carry a second weapon with us? So if we miss the first shot with the bow, can we shoot a shotgun shot after the animal or something like this? And we were able to have a lot of good discussions of how the bow is used as a weapon. Anyway, when we compare the harvest situations and exclude the spine shots and the head shots, both weapons seem to lead into really same kind of results. Well, some open questions that we had when we went through the data. We haven't still went through the correlation between the missed shots and the shooting distances, if that's one of the reasons why some of the situations ended up wounding the animals. We're still waiting for the report and the the analysis with this. Also, we haven't run any correlation between the escape distances and type of hunting tip or the bullets and the bullet kinetic energies and so on. So that's something we're still waiting for. Also, there's one open question we're not going to get any answers, but we have some assumptions. The lung hard vital area definition is broad. It's a big area, and some of the some of the lung hits on the rifle data seem to end up on the animal directly dropping on its tracks. With some of the shooters, and some of the shooters had a lot of deer shot into during the research, and I noticed that some of these people, even though shooting to the lungs, seem to have the animals dropping down, and some of the people end up having the animals running after a good lung shot. And I think there's some reason, there's a variation between the bullets in terms of the rate of expansion, and also high lung hits when they hit the, do you call it scapula or the leg bones, or if the bullet goes really close to the spine, might end up in kind of bumping the animal and dropping it down. And there's no way for us right now to know if that's been one of the factors why some of the animals have been dropping down, even though they haven't been shot to the nervous system or the head. We know, we hunt with the rifle, I hunt with the rifle. I know some of the animals, they just drop down even if you shoot to the lungs, but I think that there's a lot of uncharted, how you call it, uncharted territory to still go through to understand why the animals behave as they behave after being shot with different weapons. So right now we're having really rough comparison, a lot of factors still open. Now, what's going on with the research after this? Mikaela Sauvala, the veterinarian, is going to go through the statistical analysis with the external expert and find out all the cross-tabulation between the different factors and try to find some correlation. Laura Hänninen, the welfare specialist, I think she's a professor of Helsinki University on the animal welfare side, is going to analyze the harvest videos, even if she hasn't done it already. And then Mikaela is going to write the final report of the study during the summer, so we can publish it out. We also collected blood samples for measuring cortisol from the animals that been shot, but right now it seems like we're not going to be able to get any data from the blood samples. It's a different story. I'll write more about it later when I have the permission. It's one of the risks that we had with the research, and I have to say that when we decided to collect blood samples from the animals and try to measure the stress hormones from them, it was a kind of we know it can be sketchy. It could be that it can't be done, but we still tried it. What we notice also is that collecting the harvest data was surprisingly hard, even though we have thousands of bow hunters in Finland. Bow hunters here don't organize themselves. They're not nowadays part of bow hunting clubs, they're part of normal hunting clubs. And I would say we have like one bow hunter for every 10 or every 20 rifle hunters in this country. So gathering data from rifle hunters is easy. We just contact one big hunting club as we did, but getting data from the bow hunters is like, you know, everything scattered around Finland pretty much. So we have to do a lot of manual work and do a lot of phone calls and emails. Anyway, this was a short briefing of the Finnish research about the whitetails. We're really close to getting it done and getting the report out. The results show promising, but there's a lot of factors that this research can't actually solve, and a lot of questions that are still open after this. And for our point of view, the biggest thing or the most important thing is to get out a report that actually shows that when we compare long shots to whitetails, it doesn't matter what the gun is. The ethicality comes from the hunter himself or herself.
So Antti, thank you very much for your presentation. What I'm going to do now is